The wheat penny is officially facing extinction. What you're looking at right now isn't just a piece of rotted steel pennies. It is a $2 million mistake that is being pulled from circulation as we speak. The government doesn't want you to know that these ugly pennies, the ones covered in green slime and deep pits, are actually the most valuable treasures left in your change jar. If you see this specific shade of toxic green oxidation on a 1943's coin, do not throw it away. You are holding a life-changing fortune that most people are tossing into the trash can. We begin our countdown with a coin that looks like it was pulled from a toxic waste dump. Stop what you're doing. Before you spend another penny, before you dump that old coin jar into a machine, before you ignore that strange gray-colored scent sitting in a drawer somewhere in your house, listen very carefully. One of the most fascinating coins in American history may be hiding right under your nose at this very moment. It doesn't look like gold. It doesn't look rare. It doesn't look expensive. In fact, most people mistake it for a damaged coin, a toy coin, or a worthless piece of metal. Yet collectors have spent decades hunting for exceptional examples of this mysterious penny. The coin sitting in your drawer could be worth far more than you imagine. Tonight, we are uncovering the incredible story of the 1943 Steel Wheat Penny with no mint mark, a wartime survivor born during one of the most dramatic periods in United States history. What began as a desperate wartime experiment became one of the most recognizable coins ever produced by the U.S. Mint. But hidden among millions of ordinary examples are rare varieties, striking errors, and extraordinary discoveries that continue to excite collectors today. And the deeper we go into this story, the more unbelievable it becomes. To understand why this coin exists at all, we must travel back to 1943. The world was engulfed in World War II. American factories operated around the clock. Steel mills thundered day and night. Soldiers were fighting overseas in Europe, North Africa, and the Pacific. Every resource mattered. Every pound of metal was important. Copper was desperately needed for military equipment, ammunition, communication systems, and countless wartime necessities. Government officials searched for ways to conserve strategic materials, and eventually their attention turned to one of the smallest objects Americans handled every day, the humble Lincoln cent. For decades, pennies had been struck primarily from copper, but wartime demanded sacrifice. The government decided that copper could no longer be spared for coinage. A dramatic change was coming, and most Americans had no idea they were about to witness one of the most unusual chapters in coin history. When the U.S. Mint announced that pennies would be struck from steel coated with zinc instead of copper, many citizens were skeptical. A steel penny sounded strange. It looked strange. It even felt strange. Yet production moved forward. Millions upon millions of steel cents poured from the presses. The Philadelphia Mint, represented by the absence of a mint mark, produced the largest share. Workers labored tirelessly as giant presses stamped out coins destined to circulate throughout wartime America. Every coin represented a small contribution to the war effort. Every steel cent symbolized national sacrifice. What nobody realized at the time was that these temporary emergency coins would one day become some of the most famous collectibles in American numismatics. But that was only the beginning. The design itself carried tremendous symbolism. On the obverse appeared President Abraham Lincoln, whose portrait had first been introduced on the cent in 1909. Lincoln's image reminded Americans of perseverance, unity, and sacrifice during another period of national crisis. Above his portrait appeared the words, "In God we trust." To the left stood the word, "Liberty." To the right sat the date, 1943. On the reverse, two wheat stalks framed the words, "1 cent" and "United States of America." The wheat ears represented the nation's agricultural strength and prosperity. During wartime, those simple wheat stalks took on additional meaning. They represented endurance, productivity, and the determination of ordinary Americans supporting the war effort from home. Millions of people handled these coins every day without realizing they were carrying a small piece of wartime history in their pockets. The Philadelphia Mint became the center of an unprecedented manufacturing effort. Producing steel cents required new techniques, new materials, and new quality control procedures. Unlike traditional copper coins, steel cents were vulnerable to rust and corrosion if their zinc coating became damaged. Mint engineers faced constant challenges as they adapted equipment designed for copper planchets to strike steel blanks. Small imperfections could create unusual errors. Minor adjustments could alter strike quality. Every day presented new obstacles. Despite these challenges, production continued at remarkable speed. The pressure to meet wartime demand was immense. Under such circumstances, fascinating varieties and mint errors inevitably slipped into circulation, setting the stage for discoveries that collectors would spend generations pursuing. Now comes the part that every treasure hunter loves. Imagine finding a 1943 steel penny in an old jar inherited from a grandparent. To most people, it might seem ordinary, yet experienced collectors know that condition changes everything. A heavily circulated example may be worth only a modest premium over face value, but a sharply struck, original, brilliant example with strong luster can command significantly higher prices. The difference between an ordinary steel cent and an exceptional one can be dramatic. That is why collectors carefully inspect every detail: the date, the lettering, the portrait, the wheat stalks, the rim, the surface texture. Every tiny feature tells part of the story, and sometimes those details reveal something extraordinary hiding in plain sight. If you have a 1943 steel cent, begin your inspection with the date. Make sure it clearly reads 1943. Next, look beneath the date. If there is no mint mark, your coin was struck in Philadelphia. Then examine the color. Genuine steel cents display a distinctive silver-gray appearance. However, decades of circulation often produce darker tones, spots, or discoloration. Some examples remain surprisingly bright, while others develop fascinating patterns that reflect their long journeys through American history. Pay close attention to the surfaces. Original luster can dramatically influence collector interest. A coin that retains much of its original mint appearance may attract significantly stronger demand than a heavily worn example, and what collectors discovered next changed everything. Among the most intriguing varieties are doubled dies. These occur when the die used to strike coins receives a doubled impression during manufacture. On certain examples, careful inspection may reveal slight doubling in letters or numbers. Collectors often use magnification to search for these subtle characteristics. While many forms of doubling are minor, authenticated double die varieties can generate tremendous excitement in the marketplace. The challenge lies in distinguishing genuine mint-made doubling from ordinary wear or damage. Experienced collectors spend countless hours examining steel cents under magnification, hoping to uncover a variety overlooked by previous owners. Every coin becomes a mystery waiting to be solved. Die cracks represent another fascinating area of study. As dies aged under tremendous pressure, tiny fractures occasionally developed. These cracks transferred onto struck coins as raised lines. Some remain small and subtle, others grow dramatically across the design. Collectors often find these imperfections captivating because they document the physical deterioration of the tools used to create the coins. In some cases, advanced die cracks evolved into larger cuts, where portions of the die broke away entirely. These dramatic errors create raised, irregular areas on the coin's surface. Such pieces offer a direct glimpse into the manufacturing process and remain highly sought after by specialists who appreciate unusual mint-produced anomalies. Off-center strikes add another layer of excitement to the hunt. When a planchet is improperly positioned during striking, part of the design may be missing, while the remaining elements appear shifted. The visual effect can be striking. Depending on the percentage of off-center displacement and the visibility of the date, such errors often attract strong collector interest. Broad strikes, meanwhile, occur when a coin is struck without the restraining collar that normally shapes the rim. The result is a coin that appears larger and flatter than normal. These dramatic mistakes instantly stand out and provide compelling evidence of production mishaps inside the mint. The most valuable discovery, however, was still waiting to be found. As steel cents circulated, many suffered corrosion. Because the core metal was steel rather than copper, damaged zinc coatings sometimes allowed rust to develop. This created unique challenges for collectors. Distinguishing natural corrosion from original mint surfaces became a critical skill. Ironically, while rust often reduces value, exceptionally preserved examples become increasingly desirable because so many others deteriorated over time. Survival becomes part of the story. Every pristine steel cent that escapes decades of environmental damage becomes a tiny miracle of preservation. And in the world of rare coins, preservation can mean everything. But hidden among the millions of ordinary steel cents lies a legendary discovery that has captivated collectors for generations. During the transition from copper to steel in 1943, a tiny number of leftover bronze planchets from 1942 apparently remained inside mint equipment. When these copper planchets were accidentally struck with 1943 dies, one of the greatest rarities in American coin history was born. The famous 1943 bronze cent became the ultimate dream of treasure hunters. While the standard Philadelphia steel cent remains an important historical collectible, the accidental bronze version became a numismatic legend. Stories of these rare survivors continue to inspire collectors to search through jars, collections, and inherited accumulations, hoping to uncover a hidden treasure that others missed. And as incredible as that story sounds, we have only begun to explore the mysteries surrounding the 1943 Steel Wheat Penny. Because in the next part, we will uncover the dramatic auction battles, the record-setting discoveries, the authentication secrets professionals use, and the astonishing details that separate ordinary examples from coins capable of commanding extraordinary attention from collectors around the world. Next up. They know that the 1943 Steel Wheat Penny represents one of the most extraordinary chapters in American coin history. More importantly, they know that certain examples have generated tremendous excitement in the collector market, especially when rare eras, exceptional preservation, and unusual varieties enter the picture. Tonight we are uncovering the secrets, mysteries, and hidden treasures surrounding the legendary 1943 Steel Wheat Penny, a coin born from war, necessity, and one of the most dramatic transformations ever seen in American coinage. Year was 1943. Across the world, nations were locked in a conflict unlike anything humanity had ever witnessed. World War II dominated every headline. American factories worked around the clock producing tanks, aircraft, ships, ammunition, and military supplies. Every pound of metal became important. Every resource was carefully managed. Copper, one of the essential materials used to manufacture traditional Lincoln cents, was desperately needed for wartime production. Government officials faced a difficult challenge. They needed to conserve strategic materials while continuing to produce coinage for everyday commerce. The solution would forever change the appearance of the American penny. Instead of copper, the United States Mint decided to strike cents from zinc-coated steel planchets. The result was a coin unlike any penny Americans had ever seen before. It was bright, silvery, and completely different from the familiar copper coins that had circulated for decades. Many citizens were surprised when they first encountered these unusual pennies, but they quickly became a symbol of wartime sacrifice and national unity. On the West Coast, the San Francisco Mint played a critical role in this historic production effort. Identified by the small S mint mark located beneath the date, the San Francisco facility produced millions of steel cents during 1943. The Mint's employees worked tirelessly under wartime pressure, striving to meet production goals while maintaining quality standards. Massive coin presses thundered throughout the facility as steel planchets flowed through the machinery. Every coin represented a tiny contribution to America's war effort. Yet despite the Mint's best efforts, production at such extraordinary speed occasionally allowed mistakes to escape into circulation. Those mistakes, almost unnoticed at the time, would later become some of the most sought-after treasures in the world of coin collecting. But that is only the beginning. The design of the 1943 Steel Wheat Penny carried deep symbolism. On the obverse stands Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States. Sculptor Victor David Brenner's portrait had appeared on the cent since 1909 and remained one of the most recognizable images in American coinage. Above Lincoln's head appears the motto, "In God We Trust." To the left is the word liberty. To the right rests the date 1943, with the tiny but important S mint mark below it. On the reverse, two graceful wheat stalks frame the words 1 cent and United States of America. The wheat ears symbolize agricultural abundance, national strength, and prosperity, During wartime, these symbols took on additional significance. They represented endurance, determination, and the spirit of ordinary Americans supporting the nation during its greatest challenge. Millions carried these coins without realizing they held a piece of history in their pockets. As steel cents entered circulation, Americans quickly noticed their unusual appearance. Some confused them with dimes because of their silver-gray color. Others complained that the coins rusted too easily when their zinc coating became damaged. Vending machines occasionally rejected them. Cashiers sometimes struggled to distinguish them from other denominations. Despite these challenges, the steel cent fulfilled its wartime purpose. It conserved valuable copper while keeping the nation's coinage system functioning. Yet hidden among the millions of ordinary examples were remarkable varieties, striking anomalies, and production errors that would eventually capture the attention of collectors across the country. What began as a temporary emergency measure soon evolved into one of the most studied coin issues in American numismatic history. If you own a 1943 Steel Wheat Penny, the first step is careful examination. Begin with the date and mint mark. Verify that the date clearly reads 1943 and that the small s appears beneath it. Next, inspect the coin's color. Genuine steel cents display a distinctive gray or silver appearance due to their zinc coating. Original examples often retain bright surfaces and cartwheel luster when rotated under a light source. Coins that spent decades in circulation may appear darker or show areas of discoloration. Some develop spots, streaks, or tunning patterns that reflect their long journey through American commerce. The challenge for collectors is determining whether these changes occurred naturally or if the coin has been altered. Every detail matters, and the closer you look, the more fascinating the story becomes. Collectors pay particular attention to strike quality on the 1943 steel cent. Strongly struck examples reveal crisp details throughout Lincoln's portrait and sharp definition in the wheat stalks. Hair strands above Lincoln's ear should appear distinct and well-formed. The lettering should be bold and clear. The wheat lines on the reverse should display impressive detail from top to bottom. Weakly struck examples, by contrast, often show softness in these areas. Because strike quality varies from coin to coin, collectors frequently search through large quantities of steel cents, hoping to find unusually sharp examples. A superior strike can dramatically increase collector interest, especially when combined with original surfaces and minimal wear. One of the most exciting areas of study involves mint errors. During the intense wartime production period, dies occasionally cracked under pressure. These cracks created raised lines on the finished coins. Some remained tiny and barely visible. Others grew dramatically as the dies continued striking coins. Collectors often treasure these imperfections because they provide a direct connection to the mint's manufacturing process. Die chips can also appear as small raised lumps caused by tiny pieces breaking away from the die. Larger die failures sometimes produced cuds, creating substantial raised areas near the rim. These fascinating mistakes transformed ordinary cents into collectible varieties that continue to attract attention decades later. The real excitement begins when collectors discover off-center strikes, clipped planchets, broad strikes, or dramatic strike-through errors. Imagine finding a steel cent where part of the design is missing because the planchet was improperly positioned during striking. Imagine uncovering a coin struck through grease, cloth fibers, or foreign debris trapped between the die and the planchet. These unusual production mistakes create unique appearances that instantly separate a coin from the millions of ordinary examples. Because each error tells a different story, collectors often compete aggressively for exceptional specimens. And yet, even these fascinating errors are overshadowed by a discovery that changed the collecting world forever. Among all the stories surrounding the 1943 Steel Wheat Penny, one stands above the rest. During the transition from copper to steel, a tiny number of leftover bronze planchets from the previous year apparently remained inside mint equipment. When these copper planchets were accidentally struck with 1943 dies at San Francisco, one of the greatest rarities in American numismatic history was created. The legendary 1943 bronze cent became an object of fascination, mystery, and extraordinary collector demand. Only a handful are believed to exist. Their appearance at auction creates immediate excitement. Their discovery generates headlines throughout the collecting community. Every time collectors search through old collections, inherited coin jars, or forgotten accumulations, they secretly dream of finding one. And that dream is precisely what keeps the treasure hunt alive generation after generation. Next up.